Robert Kelly. He's a professor of political science and diplomacy at Pusan National University. He joins me live now from Busan in South Korea. Thank you for being with us on the program, Professor.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Let me get your initial thoughts now on this whole situation, which many have described as absolutely chaotic at the House. What does this mean for the House and the Republicans, of course?
Yeah, it is pretty unprecedented, right? I mean, it's genuinely bizarre that a leader of one's party would be tipped by members of his own party, right? I mean, the media has sort of emphasized the fact that the opposition voted against McCarthy, which is true. That's pretty normal, right? But what also happened is that you had a defection of several hard-right Republicans, as your reporter mentioned, and that's what brought McCarthy down. Everybody knew this was coming. I think it's a real sort of, if they voted against him, everybody knew he was going to fall. And so I wonder what the Republican play here is. I mean, what is the conference actually going to do in the future? I mean, right now, it's really not clear who is going to be the leader of the House of Representatives. On Twitter, people are talking about asking Donald Trump, of all people, to take that role. I mean, that would be unprecedented to have someone from outside of the House. As you say, it really is chaotic, and no one is really quite sure how this moves forward. It's very, McCarthy has said he won't come back, which I think surprised a lot of people. And there's no obvious candidate to go to next. Like I said, I mean, that's why people are talking about Trump and, have sort of other ideas that maybe they can operate with a temporary speaker for a while. This is all really sort of bizarre, and it's really unprecedented. It's not really quite clear, actually, how this facilitates Republicans taking greater control in the future, right? If it looks like the Republicans are so beyond governing, right? If it looks like nihilism, then nobody's going to vote for this kind of stuff. If I were in a swing district in the Republican caucus, I'd be nervous.
As you mentioned, McCarthy did say that he is not going to run for the position again. Would you say that this marks the end of his political career?
No, he could probably get reelected. I mean, incumbents in the United States get reelected pretty regularly, right? If McCarthy makes a real effort, I'm sure he can stay. And politicians like the job, they still want to stay a long time. But I think McCarthy will never again have a leadership role. This will be seen by other members of the Republican conference in the House as foregoing an opportunity to try to sort of get the House back in order. If he steps aside, as he says to, and the House goes without any kind of leadership structure for several weeks, he's in part going to be blamed for that. Right, I would imagine he'll never be able, for example, to run for president or something like that. He'll never be able to aspire to any higher office. So, yes, he can stay in there. But in terms of his elevation through the American political system, I think you're correct. It's over.
And as we know, there is a risk of a shutdown. Now, with this unprecedented situation happening at the House, where do you see this leading to?
Yeah, I think a shutdown at this point is pretty likely, right? I mean, you actually need leadership in the House in order to push through the budget bills that actually forestall that possibility. Again, it's possible that the Republicans will sort of settle on some kind of interim figure who will sort of get in there to prevent a shutdown. Shutdowns, shutdowns have traditionally reverberated against the parties that provoke them. So if this happens, the Republicans will be blamed. That's what happened the last couple times the Republicans did this. So there's a strong incentive politically for them to get on top of this. But again, without the leadership in place, it's just not really clear how that would happen. I mean, as you noted in your beginning remarks, that this really is unprecedented, and it's not really clear how we move forward. Hence the desperation you see on right-wing media, on Twitter and Fox and so on.
All right, Professor Robert Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here on the NewsHour and sharing that analysis with us.
Thank you for having me.